Welcome to Reselling Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and we're on episode 310, an update episode.
Yeah, 310. Here we go. Updates. We're going to talk about what's going on in our life, what's going on in the reselling world at large. We're going to give you some smoking fire hot BOLOs. Is that what we settled on?
I guess so.
Spicy
BOLOs.
Sweet.
So anyways, a lot of good stuff in this episode. There's just a lot of recap of what's going on with us. And this is what we love. This is what I love about the podcast is that I hope we never approach it like we're some gurus talking down and saying, hey, this is what you should do to make your business successful. It's just Mike and I just sharing what we've been through, right? And you take away what will be successful for you. And then you go, you know what? Rolando and Mike are probably wrong on that. I'm not going to do that. And I'm okay with that. Yeah. So, you know, I'll start off a little bit. So I got to tell you, it's been an interesting last few weeks as far as sourcing. Like opportunities keep coming up. And Mike will tell you, I don't know, did we talk about this in the last podcast? So we did our whatnot auction. And Mike will talk about that a little bit. But, you know, it was like 5 hours. And so, you know, Mike became really familiar with my place, right? Because, you know, I had to take him to different rooms where I had to store some of the stuff and kind of show him my inventory process. This is a funny thing. Mike and I are so busy that literally Mike and I, the only time we hang out is on the podcast most of the time.
Yeah.
Like we'll hang out like at Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah.
And
but if you think about that, maybe that's normal, right? Like, you know, a couple hours a week. If we were spending more than that, like that might be excessive.
Wow. Okay. So anyways, but it was funny because as we're walking through everything, he just keeps looking at stuff. He goes, got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I said, have you ever stopped to consider that maybe you have too much stuff? So, and his argument was I think spot on. It's true. It's like, this is his inventory. I mean, you wouldn't go to like an Amazon warehouse and be like, you have too much stuff that you're selling, right? The reality is if the stuff is selling, it's perfectly fine to have more of it, right? Just keep it as much as you can have. But I mean, your model, you're in between, I think, that stage where you could like potentially go to like a bigger storage, not like a
crazy,
not like a 10 by 20 storage, but like a real like storage,
like
facility.
Warehouse kind of deal.
But that would be the overhead for that would be so excessive that you'd have to be more and be able to go fast. So you're like in that in between stage on that. So if you're living like that and you don't have, I mean, some people, you know, land is cheap. You got, you know, lots of sheds in your backyard and it's easy to handle that. But you know, where we're at, land is a premium and housing is stupid expensive. And being that you're a bachelor, you can kind of say, you know what? I don't need all of these rooms to be like functioning as like a quote unquote normal house.
And now let's be real. There's only really, on a good day, there's only 2 rooms that are really being used for eBay inventory. There's the podcast room here where we do the podcast, and I do have some storage in here. I do have another eBay room, and I have a shipping room, so all my shipping supplies, and then the garage,
and the garage. And is the shipping room what you also consider where like a lot of that other stuff was in? Like
yeah.
So
like the used electronics.
There's literally like, I would say at least 100 pieces of inventory in the rooms that he's not using for.
Okay, yeah. So things have gotten kind of crazy because I've had some major hauls this summer. I had 2 major hauls, a whole house, and then I had, you know, the eBay store that we bought out. And so that's still taking up a lot of space because we are going to do another auction. We'll talk about that a little bit here. And so, yeah, but it's one of those things that I can't let it stop me. But you're right. I'm in this weird in-between stage. But what's fascinating to me is it's kind of, you know, you ever heard the story of, you know, if you want to have big fish in a fish tank, you have to buy a bigger tank, right? Because the size of the tank limits the size of the goldfish.
Which is actually not true.
It's not true?
No.
I thought it was true.
No, it's not true.
Okay, anyways, but what I feel like.
It's a good metaphor.
But I've only been here a year. And if Mike, if you remember,
to fill the space.
If you remember when we first were doing the podcast in here, we had a lot more like empty space.
Yeah, it's a sign of growth. That's a good thing.
Well, hopefully, as long as the sales are coming.
Yeah, as long as the stuff's moving.
So yeah, I've been sourcing. I mean, I even went sourcing the other day in the rain, and it was kind of nice. I went to this estate sale at like 11 a.m. and people weren't really going. And I go, and it was 50% off everything. And then on top of that, they're just like, we're making deals. Like they even put it on their paper. So if you saw the Instagram story, for $25, I picked up like 5 gun holsters. There's money in leather gun holsters. So that's a BOLO right there. Probably should have kept that for the
some
BOLO
of those.
section. So yeah. And then weightlifting belts. What else did I pick up? I picked up like a Gucci dust bag. I picked up some Bergano shoes. I picked up basically probably, I would say, inventory that would cost me like $100 at the thrift for $25. Right. So I really do believe people are trying to move stuff. And I've said this for a while, but I do think, and I could be wrong by the time this podcast dries, but I don't think we've hit peak inflation. I just don't. I just, in my own personal experience, I mean, I know I can say silly things like, do you know that McDonald's soda is now $1.89?
Yeah.
It went from $1 to $1.89.
I don't go there, but I'm not surprised.
But like overnight.
Yeah.
So that's just a small, like minute anecdotal example. But I do think that people's, costs are going up. Gas is going back up. It dipped for like, 3 weeks, and now it's going back up. So I do believe a lot of people are just saying, you know what? I don't need this stuff. I'm willing to unload this stuff. I do think that estate sale companies are recognizing that buyers, like resellers, have a lot of options as to what they buy. And so they're willing to move stuff for cheaper. At least that's my experience. Last 2-3 estate sales I've gone to, they're usually ones that they're pretty like stiff on the price. And then I've just said, hey, can we just work on this price? And sure enough, they've dropped the price.
Nice. Yeah. It never hurts asking, right?
It never hurts to ask. And so I see that consistently. And, but along with that, I've also, as far as the eBay algorithm, I really do believe the algorithm hates the returns. And maybe it's just me, but I've looked at in the last 6 months, the moments I actually looked at my data where I had really low sales. It's when I've had higher return rates, and not super huge return rates, but I just find that it just slowed down as soon as all those items are returned back to me and I refund everybody, things get back to normal. So it's been interesting. Now, one last thing, and we'll catch up on Mike. Google Images. Have you used Google Image Search?
Yeah. The what do they call it? Lens? Is that
whatever it is. And I know I'm late to the party. I'm like probably like 5 years late or something. But so for example, I picked up probably 50 Breyer horses.
Nice.
But those things are a pain to identify.
Yep.
A pain. Like there's a site, everybody's like, oh, go identify your Breyer. So I've been on there and it's like, look at the legs and then look at the mane and I'm like, no.
Those kinds of sites are very helpful and useful for like collectors who are into the hobby, and they're really, because they know the terminology, they know what categories they should be kind of searching. So that's easy to do. But if you're just the one-off person that's getting one here and there, that's not going to be as useful for you.
Yeah. So I eventually got tired of it, and I downloaded the app, the Google app on my phone, and because I'm an iPhone kind of guy.
Wah, wah, wah.
And I used Google Image, and it was so fast. Like, granted, did I still have to identify some of them? I did, but it quickly gave me like keywords. And so I probably cut my time in half. And now when I go sourcing, when it's like a lot of stuff and I really don't know what something is called, I'll just pull out that Google Image and right away I'll be able to, know what it is. So if you haven't tried out Google Images, I'm sure there's something scary, like it's going to steal your information. It's going to catalog everything you source for whatever reason. But yeah, because if you use Google to store your photos, they have access to all your photos.
Yeah, I think that happened. The same thing happened with iPhone though too.
You just like dropped that in there.
That was a whole release that came out. But yeah, so what we're specifically talking about though is the image lookup. So you're not using images to search for images.
I'm joking. Yeah.
No. What I'm saying though is just for those who maybe don't know how to use that, when we say Google Images, so Google Images is the title of like when you're searching for an image. Like, but if you're taking a picture to search for something, that's I think it's called Google Lens, or like that's like an image lookup as opposed to Google Images. So don't get confused. What we're talking about is literally you can take a picture with your camera and then it'll come up with options for you.
Yeah, or it'll take up pictures of other stuff and so on. I mean, It's definitely, and it's just a Google app, and if you can see it on the YouTube, it's just on the side. There's
on the
camera.
Search. Yeah, you push the camera, so you got like a microphone option, you got a camera option.
Yeah, and it'll look
Google Lens. That is what it's.
Is
called.
That Google Lens? Oh yeah, Google Lens. Google Lens. Everyone. All right, Mike, what's going on with you?
Man, crazy time for sure. So we had that awesome whatnot haul
extravaganza.
Yeah, we had the eBay haul where we bought an eBay store, and then if you listen to our last episode, we talked about it briefly. So I don't want to belabor the point and go into over and over. I don't want this to be the new fifth wheel story, where everyone's like, you're still talking about.
You just had a couple people hate on you for the fifth wheel.
About the fifth wheel. I'm like, yeah, well, I sold it and made a bunch of money. Okay. And that's what I do as a reseller. So I talked about it. But anyways,
what if that person's still listening to the podcast?
Well, now they know. I don't apologize for talking about the fifth wheel. There it is. So we bought an eBay store and we were able to basically get it at rock bottom prices. And so Orlando and I are like, we split the cost. We're like, what do we do with all this stuff? Because it's way too much stuff. Neither of us have time or energy right now to add all this to our inventory. And a lot of it is stuff that both of us would love to have in our inventory. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, we have two options here. One, we can like go through and like really figure it out and then try and split it, which is like a little bit challenging, or let's just throw it all up on Whatnot. And we totally underestimated, I think the size and scope of what a Whatnot auction would be for the inventory. Because you were like, I think it's like 500, 600 items. I think we're looking at closer to like 700, 800, and it's a lot of items.
It's a lot of stuff,
including all the small things. Maybe it's not. We had a 4-hour auction and we got through. We sold 100.
5 hour.
Was 5-hour auction and we sold 139 items. That's it, 139 items, and we only had like 2 that didn't sell. So we only were able to like present like 140 some items total in 5 hours.
But I will admit, I watched a lot of Whatnot auctions, and you and I were just like engaging with everyone. Like we were having a conversation, we were joking around. Like I've seen other Whatnots
takes a certain amount of time though.
They do, but I've seen others where they crank like 300 to 500 in that amount of time. Well, but they're just business the whole time.
But even still, you would have to have the time, because if you're setting 45 seconds, it takes at least 15 seconds.
I see.
So you're looking at minimum a minute per item, plus the amount of time that it takes to actually get it all set up. And then if anybody starts bidding it up at the end, so you're looking at probably a minute and a half, 2 minutes if you're going as fast as you can on items.
It's true. So a valid point.
Yeah, you figure you're all of a sudden getting to a couple of hours easily just there. So yeah, I mean it was a beast. It took a lot of time for us to get through that. But it was a lot of fun. It was fun to talk.
Thank you to everybody that showed up.
Yeah, with a lot of our listeners. Speaking of which, if you missed that one and you're like, what is this? I missed a Whatnot auction from Pure Hustle Podcast, and they were giving away stuff at the dirt cheap prices.
Hey, we did give some deals.
I mean, we pretty much started everything at like anywhere from $1 to $3. I think there was only like a handful of things. We're like, let's start this at $8. But that was like a really nice jacket or something. Like,
one of the fails was a vintage t-shirt that I was attached to that I started at 30.
Yeah, everything else was like, all right, put it up for $2. Put it up for $2. And so, I mean, obviously people bid to what they felt was an appropriate amount to pay for it, but people were getting steals on a lot of things, So if you felt a little bit like you missed out, you don't have to feel like that anymore, because this coming Monday, the 19th, I think it's September 19th. So this coming Monday, what are we going to say? Like 6:30 we'll start it.
Something like that. 6 to 6:30. We'll drop it eventually.
Yeah, we'll drop the information. So make sure you're following us. But yeah, 6:30 Pacific Standard Time. And we are not going to do another 5-hour auction. We're going to handpick the things that we didn't even look through most of it. We're going to look through some more stuff, handpick some of the best items we can find in there. And then we are going to be, again, for dirt cheap prices. So if you haven't signed up for Whatnot yet and you're interested, we have a link in our description. If you sign up with using that link, you get $15 credit that you can use towards any auction. It doesn't even have to be ours. Just buy something. It's $15 credit you can use, but definitely feel free to use it on our auction. And if you are a Whatnot, person already, you already have an account, you're already buying stuff, then you can just make sure to follow us, check us out on Monday, and we'll be selling some more stuff. That'll be sweet.
All right. So I know we may drop a YouTube video, but to talk about why the aftermath was a beast.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple parts to it. So my wife was there behind the scenes, and she was extremely helpful.
Incredible.
So part of it was she didn't know, and then when I took over, I didn't know. There was the way we were trying to run it. It took a couple of them to figure out, like, okay, here's how you search the item, because we pre-made items, and like, let's make sure like we're putting enough detail in an item so we don't lose it. But so once we kind of got through that, my wife was really good at organizing everything. So like things were either shirts or jackets or sweaters or shoes or hats. Like they were a certain item, and then they were put into piles numerically in order. So item 1 was at the bottom, item 2. So shirt 1, organized. Everything was organized. And then when she left, it's just Orlando and I running the show. And somehow we added a second sweater category. So there was sweater, and then there was sweater with a capital A in there for some random reason. Like, like the meme where it's like, it's a sweater, right? So we had that. And so then we had like sweater 1 and sweater 1. And it's like, oh my gosh, which sweater did they get? And then we were trying to put them in the right piles, but then there was a point where they were just going into like a box, and we
just tossed them in a bin.
And we were putting like the labels on them, just like a little like a sticky label of like what the item number was and what it was titled on the auction. And then as we're pulling these things out of these boxes, so there's jackets and hats and shoes and all this stuff in this box, labels are falling off, and we're like, oh no, why did my wife have to leave? She had to go take care of our kids. So it was not a big deal. We figured it out. We had to reorganize it. My wife came over, and then my wife and I spent a bunch of time literally just organizing all the packages. Like, this goes to this person, this goes to this person, while Orlando was packing. And then we left early, and Orlando was a trooper and stayed up late and finished packing, or woke up early for you, whatever. Either way, you continued packing the rest of the stuff.
I got to a point where I was like, I'm done. Yeah. I'm just done. Now, the scary part was, do you remember where you pack it and you print the label and it doesn't tell you that you printed the label?
Oh yeah, that was kind of annoying too. So yeah, we had them all organized, and I started to like, okay, while you're doing big ones, I'm just going to start packing some of these smaller ones just to get them out, get well, on Whatnot, when we would print the shipping label, put it in, put the invoice in, it still was showing up on our total order as if it was a sale that needed to have an invoice printed. So like, we had no way other than to literally write down the order number, the person's name, and then just cross-check our own list. Like, okay, do we need to pack this one? Nope, I wrote that person's name down. Okay, go down to the next one. The whole time there was no efficient way of doing it. So it was a little bit of a nightmare. And part of that, I'm going to say 99% of that is user error on our part, just figuring it out, the process. It's like anything. Like when you first learn eBay and you're first doing packing and you're first doing shipping and you're first sourcing and taking pictures, you're going to make a ton of mistakes. And you might think like, oh, this is so hard and it's not efficient. Well, a big part of that is we just don't have all the systems in place yet to make a huge sale like that as efficient as possible. But the more we do it, the more we kind of figure out, okay, like this is how we would do it better next time. Here's how we'd make sure that things stay organized. Here's how I'd export things to CSV on a Excel and then keep track of which orders are done and which orders are not. Like, there are things you can do. We just didn't do it. And so that's part of the learning process. And that's what is kind of fun about reselling is, you can obviously make huge mistakes. Luckily, we didn't make any huge mistake where we like totally messed up somebody's order and sent the wrong stuff or couldn't find it, or we didn't have any big mistakes like that because we're experienced with shipping. But it could happen to somebody. But for the most part, the mistakes you make are small enough that you can learn from them and you can grow. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. And I'm really glad we did that because one, it took a lot of energy to do. We were able to make a little bit of money, recoup the cost of what we bought the store for, plus make some money, which I really needed right now because I just moved. I talked about the last episode. So we're temporarily moving like for like a 10-month time frame to another place until we can ideally buy a house, and we're just kind of waiting on the market. That's really what this is right now. It's like we're trying to time the market and have the money we need to move and keep our costs low. So we're moving for 10 months. And so we just moved. When you were sourcing in the rain, I was moving in the rain. So I moved in the rain, everything except for my eBay store. My eBay store is still on the other property that we were at, in the shed, which is a bummer. I'm losing the shed, which, it is. I still broke even on the shed. I'll talk about that on another podcast, I'm sure.
So you still have the shed?
Well, the shed is on the other property, on my in-laws property, but I'm not going to be able to use it once we move the stuff out of it. So I'm going to lose the structure of the shed.
Okay.
But I still saved money as opposed to if I was using a storage unit that whole time. So it still works out. But we had to put our eBay store on vacation mode because with a move, trying to help our parents move, trying to deal with 2 children, and my wife is pregnant. It's like and I'm on like the second week of school right now. So it's like, it's so much going on that it's like, as a part-time reseller, I had to go to basically say, I'm putting this on pause for a little bit. And this maybe can be even kind of like my random story, as it were. Because I don't have like a specific random story, but it just got me thinking that there's a difference between being part-time and being full-time. But I think you have to consider it from both sides, because I think it's easy for people on one side or the other, whether you're part-time or full-time, to kind of look at the other and say, well, it'd be easy if, right? Or it's easier for you because, But the reality is I had the freedom being part-time to say, because I make enough on my eBay store and I've saved enough and I'm trying to be wise with my money and frugal with my spending, that I don't need eBay to make any money for the next couple of months. And I'm going to be more than fine because I've made enough on eBay over the course of the year already. So I don't need to make a ton of money on eBay for the next month, which I think I'm going to take at least 2 weeks off. And you can't do that as a full-time person.
No.
However, at the same time, I wasn't able to say, you know what, I'm not going to go to my full-time 9-to-5 job for the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. So I'm still working. If this was my full-time job, then I would have fit in the move and doing eBay as if I had a full-time job too. So it kind of goes both directions. So part of me was like grateful for the fact that I'm part-time. And then the other part of me is like, but if I was full-time, it wouldn't be much different than the fact that I have to deal with this move. I have to deal with a pregnant wife and children. And then I have to drive to work in the morning and go work for 10 hours. Right. So you could figure it out either direction. But it is kind of, that's one of the reasons that we do tell people when you're first starting out, do part-time as long as you can until you know you can't do part-time anymore. Like you're good enough. You have the inventory and you're like, there's no point in doing part-time. I can do this full-time. But you need to know you're there, and it might take a couple years before you're at that point. But you need to be able to experience, hey, can I go on break? Because then if you've done it full-time long enough, you can still go on vacations. You take a week off here and there, and you're still able to make it work.
I take a lot of breaks. I mean, I do travel a lot. I travel more now as a full-time reseller than I ever did when I was in education. So but I do hustle a lot. Yeah. Now, something you brought up, you're not worried about eBay the next, month or whatever. Part of that too is the whatnot auction. I think,
and that's why I said that. I was glad I was able to do that.
But the reason I bring that up is, my opinions changed on whatnot. So a few earlier months back in April, May, when I ran some auctions, kind of was like, I don't know, like everything's really, I can't sell stuff at a premium. I can't, it's not like eBay, and it wasn't worth my time. And I think at that time it wasn't worth my time. But I think buying this eBay store at a very economical price definitely, I think, changed my mind. Because it allowed us, we've already made our money back. We've already made profit on top of that. And I really, really believe that if you're able to get consistent, cheap inventory, not cheap, not meaning like, like Alibaba, like quality kind of stuff. I'm talking about like, vintage goods, stuff that people want. You could very much like run five one-night auctions in a week, and you could take the month off. Right. I mean, I think there's the potential of having that model. On the other end, you can also source things off of whatnot. I mean, I'm pretty sure some of the major buys that we had, like somebody I think dropped like $200 something on everything. They're going to 5X that money easy. Right. And so I think there's plenty of opportunity to source. And this is why I push our credit, not just because we get a kickback, but I really do believe like it'll get you, you spend that $15 and, you got to pay shipping too. You could turn that around into profit, right? Who knows what you can find out there. I mean, some of the stuff we started at $1 and just went to like $3 or $5. Some stuff surprised me, went to like $20-$30, and here's the thing. I mentioned before, I think that whatnot is taking a huge chunk of eBay market. What do you call that? Market share. The market share. And I don't think that's going away. I'm not sure why eBay is not pushing this. Well, let's put it this way. Maybe once they get, immediate payments figured out, maybe they'll do this. But
and that's the thing is like you've made comments in the past where you're like, eBay's still the big dog, and things like Poshmark they're not even like really
I agree with
that. But the thing is, the reality is each one of these little things, because I would say Poshmark is probably making a bigger dent in the total market than right now than whatnot is, or pretty close. I don't know. If you look at the gross sales. Well, I mean, I think
we don't know because the numbers haven't come out.
Right. So, but I think you're kind of going off of like anecdotal experience. But I think if you're to do gross sales, I would imagine right now that like something like Poshmark is probably beating whatnot. Maybe not. I could be wrong. But the point I'm trying to make though is a lot of these companies come in and they're taking horizontal chunks out, right? Like one of them comes in and takes the clothing market. One of them comes in and takes maybe like vintage clothing and collectibles market. And somebody else comes in and takes another category. And something like Poshmark, what they did tried to do, which I would say eBay needed to figure out, was they figured out to an extent, I don't think they did it well, but the almost blending social media, having an account, having followers, getting people into your store, getting people like watching your stuff specifically. Because if eBay could have maybe introduced that a little bit and figured that out with eBay, then something like, hey, now we want to do live auctions. Well, I've already got like 2,000 followers on my store that like my stuff. And now they're getting a blast that I've got an auction going on. Right. So I think had they have jumped in and said, we've gotten all of these horizontal chunks being taken out of our company, like we might still vertically be the biggest company, but along the way, like all these chunks are coming out of other companies are figuring stuff out and they're doing it maybe better. That had eBay said, maybe we need to figure out a little bit of adding the social media factor in here.
But they did. That's the thing. eBay had mentioned this, like in their report to investors, I believe back in Q1. This was part of what they were going to do. And the reason I bring this up is because live streaming sales is blowing up in China. So in China right now, okay, in 2022, the total revenue of Chinese e-commerce live stream is projected to reach 180 billion with 660 million viewers. Okay, the figure is expected to further grow to 720 billion in 2023. And I see these guys on TikTok too. I mean, they're like 24-hour streamers, just auctioning just stuff off over and over and over and over again. Right now, as of 2020, there are at least 123 million professional live stream hosts in China.
It's pretty intense.
That's huge. So if that comes to the US, I think right now Whatnot. So Whatnot's in this, beginning stages, right? I mean, I know they've been around for a year, but even that shipping issue that we talked about, that it doesn't clear that up. Even they, for example, in the last month or maybe last 2 months, initially when you were trying to set up stuff for a store, you could only take live pictures to upload. Now you can take all the pictures at once, and then you can go back in your camera roll and upload those pictures. Right. So they're adapting, they're learning. I just think, and I keep saying this, like for whatever reason, I mean, eBay is doing some great things. Like they're doing authenticity guarantee on sneakers, on purses and all this stuff, watches. The send offers was one of the big ones in the last couple of years. But I think live streaming, I was opposed to it 4 or 5 months ago. And I think there's still a lot of things to be worked out. Like no one wants to sit through and, people were there with us for 5 hours because they just, it was a great time of hanging out.
It's a different clientele, right? And that's part of the thing is each of these, the reason these companies can do so well, and I want to clarify, I said it backwards. The various other smaller fry, and I call them small fry, but the smaller companies, Poshmark, Etsy, Depop, now Whatnot, these things are taking vertical chunks out of a horizontal. It's like eBay is very horizontal. It's very wide. It's covering lots and lots of categories. And then another competitor comes in and says, hey, yeah, you have auto parts and you have used clothes and you have new clothes and you have all these things, but we're going to come in and we're going to sell collectible action figures and we're going to do it better. And we're going to have a fun way of doing it. And they come in and they take a big chunk of that specific market out of eBay. And so they're coming in and taking vertical chunks out of this horizontal company. And so part of it though is I think there's going to be a trend towards some of these live auction things. I definitely think, but I don't think it's going to be the number one way people buy. I think there's going to be a small percentage of people who like and enjoy this and they're going to get hooked on it and that's how they're going to shop. But like, it's not going to replace Amazon. It's not going to replace the way people buy normal things in the same way eBay that sells a lot of things new. And people are still going to say like, hey, I'm looking for something to buy somebody for their birthday. Maybe I'll watch 7 hours of auctions to see if this specific card that I'm looking for shows up, right? Like, so it's going to take specific people are looking for things like Whatnot. And I think there's an audience for it, but I don't think it's the broad general population audience. So do I think it grows? I definitely think it grows. And maybe over time, culture starts to shift and more people are like, I don't know what I want for my grandkids should get for their birthday. I'm just going to watch Whatnot ad. And then I'm going to, that's what they're getting, right? Maybe over decades and generations, that's the way people's minds shift when it comes to buying stuff. But I think there's just going to be a small percentage of the population, which when you consider in America, 300 some million people, even a very small percentage of that could be spending millions and millions of dollars. So it's significant for sure.
All right. So just a quick random story just to reiterate about leaving business cards. So kind of crazy. If you my our Instagram stories, over the last 2 months, I've been to the same house twice. And in this house, they had a bunch of vintage toys. And the first time I went, it was one of those where not only did they not have things priced, they didn't even know if they wanted to sell all the stuff. So I would bring out something and they're like, yeah, I don't want to sell that yet. Or I'd bring out something, I don't want to sell that yet. And then other sellers would be on there, and resellers would be at the garage sale, let's see, whatever you want to call it. And they would be denied too. But I was like, you know what? Eventually they're going to want to get rid of the stuff because the garage was so stacked, you couldn't even walk through stuff. So I left my business card. I show up a week later thinking that by now they're ready to sell. Sure enough, same story. I left my business card again out of nowhere today. So I teach homeschool classes, and I get this random message I teach 3 in the middle of my second class, and I have a 30-minute lunch break. So they're like, hey, at 1:00 with the dumpsters coming. And it's like 11 something. And I'm like, oh man, it's going to take me 16 minutes to get there. That means 16 minutes back, but my lunch is only 35 minutes. That means I have 32 minutes to close it, to make it and close the deal. So they message me, I show up, I take off, I dismiss my students, I go. And here's the thing, when you do a bulk buy, all you have to see is a few items that are worth it, right? So I saw some vintage Transformers, I saw some vintage Star Wars, not vintage like 70s, 80s, like 90s Star Wars toys sell. It depends. Don't pick up the new package like Mace Windu and like Queen Amidala. Like, I don't think those figures go for very much. I think I actually have those in my own collection. But there's some other stuff that sell money. So I just saw a few, and I knew that they wanted to get rid of the stuff because the dumpsters coming. And I'm pretty sure if I said like $20, they would have been like, sure. So I broke my own rule because I was in a hurry to get back to my classes. And I just said, how about 50 for all of it? And they're like, sure. And they're like, hey, we have more stuff. And so they're supposed to reach out to me with more stuff. But one of the items I'm going to be able to sell for 50 to 60, and everything else is going to be profit. And Mike saw it. It was like a ton of toys. And so I should do well. So always leave your business card.
It's good.
All right. Hey, if you haven't been following us yet well, not following us, but haven't had a chance to support us on Patreon, we always appreciate those of you that just for $5.55 a month, you've been helping us keep the lights on, helping us pay for the equipment, helping us, be able to take some time aside from reselling. And along with that, you've been able to get on the Discord, and the Discord is growing. We're getting new members every week, and more knowledge. And it's pretty awesome because, again, it's not the Mike and Orlando show. I get on there as much as possible and answer as many questions, share as much BOLOs, interact with as much as I can. But, people have different hours. People have family obligations. And what's kind of nice is that if you want to lurk, you can lurk. And there's a ton of info on there. If you want to ask questions, there's more people than Mike and I that can definitely help answer your questions. And, Mike and I talked about this over the last week. Mike and I are looking to even upgrade the Discord, not the price, but the Discord, like organize it even more as we're growing, provide maybe more like areas that you can, look for the information quickly and find information. But more importantly, just be part of a community and thrive and engage. And so if you haven't yet had a chance, go to our link below or go to patreon.com/PureSoulPodcast. Sign up for $5.55 a month. That's about like 18 cents a day. And guaranteed within a day or two, you'll gain enough knowledge that you're going to be like, what is $5? So appreciate all of you that support us. And on social media, if you haven't been following social media, make sure you follow us. We're Pure Hustle Podcast on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. We're Pure Hustlecast on Twitter. And here, let me give you an example why it's important to follow us. So on Friday, American Bowl Boy reached out to us. Joel reached out to us, and he's like, "Hey, Orlando, we appreciate everything you're doing, and we're going to be dropping deals here soon." And sure enough, they posted on their social media that they were doing I think it was like it was like you can buy all this bubble wrap for $25.
That's a lot of bubble wrap.
It's 400 square feet of the large bubble wrap. And so they had a coupon code, and it wasn't just exclusively to us. It was just, it just wanted to give us a heads up. And sure enough, I was able to post, and within the hour, it was only an hour window, right? I shared it on the Discord, shared it on Instagram, shared it on Twitter, and everybody was able to get on that deal, got that deal. So if you haven't followed us on social media, you never know when the deals are going to drop. You never know there's going to be important stuff. So make sure to check us out there. And then also, if you ever want to give us a call, 619-738-1170. That's 619-738-1170. Shoot us an email, purespodcast@gmail.com. That's purespodcast@gmail.com. And if you're listening to the podcast and never seen our beautiful faces or mugs, whatever you want to call them, jump on over to YouTube, subscribe, hit that bell notification, know when videos drop, especially our Monday minisodes, and smash that like button. And as always, thank you to all of you that continue to leave incredible reviews on iTunes. Really helps us out, gets more listeners to the podcast. All right, I'm ready to talk about some some reseller topics.
This is called reseller news.
Oh, whatever you like to call it.
Something interesting is going on with a voting machine. We have eBay open, no instant payment yet. Higher chip priority rates go up, and FedEx is on the brink of collapse. All of this and more. Voting machines, man. We get accused of being political. Here we go.
No, but this wasn't political. I mean, it might be, but it's crazy. This was by several news outlets report on this. So on NPR, a hacker bought a voting machine on eBay. Here's the crazy story about it, though. They bought it from Goodwill online for $7.99, I guess, plus shipping. And then they sold it, and somebody bought the voting machine for $1,200. So why am I sharing this? Not for the political aspect of it, but for the aspect that this is why we tell everybody to start on eBay. You can sell anything on eBay.
Yeah. You can sell a voting machine.
This was a Dominion voting machine. Just go into it more. So they said, anyway, okay, so he forked over $1,200 in an effort to clarify any lingering questions about the ImageCast X provenance. He sent an email to Michigan's Secretary of State office alerting them of the deal. So after he bought it, he's like, hey, by the way, I got this. It's something he does whenever he buys a device online, he explained. It's a good thing he did. They didn't know a device was missing until they started looking to see if there's a missing machine.
Okay, I'm assuming this guy collects voting machines.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, every time you bought a device, I'm going to send a letter to the government.
Well, the news story just calls him a hacker, but, he does something with voting. They didn't know a device. As of Wednesday, the machine was still in the same unopened box that arrived nearly 2 weeks ago. Hurd said he's waiting on the FBI and other law enforcement agency to pick it up. He says he's waiting to find out it was stolen. But
imagine stealing a machine like that and being like, I don't know what this is. Just drop it off at Goodwill. And Goodwill being like, I don't know what this is. Put it on eBay.
They did, but that's what happened. It's sold on eBay. So there's a if you Google, I think there's like a video. There's a whole interview with the guy about the guy that picked it up at Goodwill. And again, so two things: shop Goodwill. Who knows what you'll find?
Did you just say shop Goodwill?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the podcast has changed.
I just
you're over here promoting Goodwill.
No, but it's funny because there's a guy on TikTok. I don't know who it is, but I scroll through it sometimes. But he shares about like, wow, Shop Goodwill has this major thing that they're trying to sell, and you could probably triple the price. And I'm like, why aren't you buying it? So he just shares it, and I go to the Goodwill site, and it's there. Now I'm not gonna buy a high end thing to triple in price, because I always believe that there's like I don't trust the store that shall not be named. But hey, if you need a voting machine, again, eBay is a great place to start. You can sell anything on eBay.
Well, and it's also interesting the fact that there's the hacker, but I think the person who sent to the government, if they're buying devices like that, there's somebody who collects voting machines. So there's also like if you're finding random things to sell, there is somebody who's into it. You know what I mean? If it's like it could be anything from I don't know what's it called? I totally forgot. Like when you got the animals that you embalm.
Taxidermy.
Yeah, taxidermy. It could be taxidermy. It could be clothes. It could be shoes. It could be a voting machine. Like there's somebody who's collecting it.
I think crazy. As a teacher, I would have loved having that voting machine. Just a piece of history. Like,
yeah,
from whatever election.
I mean, I can imagine there's a ton of people who would like to have, something like that in a museum or something like that, a collection. But it's a funny story that kind of stuff. So, all right, what's next we got here? eBay Open. Is
next week.
Is this the eBay Open that's online, kind of in person, but they don't really want people to come in person?
Did you say you're the one that told me like eBay Open was it not encouraging people to go?
No, it wasn't me. It was one of our listeners.
Oh, one of our listeners. Okay, so if you haven't, listen. I can't wait till eBay opens like it used to be in the good old days. But I definitely encourage all of you to go and sign up. I think there's a lot of valuable stuff. It's 3 days. It's September 21 through 23. We are not paid by eBay, by the way, to push this. I just think it's a great place to grow. And they have here's what I liked. When I went through all the speakers that are going to be there, I probably recognized maybe 3 outside of the eBay execs like Jordan Sweetum and Leon and some other people. I only recognized like 3 people. Like they weren't YouTubers. Right, Pure's a podcast wasn't there.
We weren't invited.
Craigslist Hunter wasn't there. Rally Roots isn't there. But they're just, I think it's good to hear from a lot of people. I always mention that there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are great resellers that we never hear from. And so I think it really would behoove you, especially since a lot of it is online, to maybe just have it play in the background. And maybe there's something you like. Now there are events here that there's times that like you can network with sellers and so on. And there's a couple other things too. There's the eBay Open Studio, so I'm going to that next week in LA at the Hudson Loft on that 23rd from 11 to 2:30. So, and maybe I don't know, maybe we'll hang out with some people after 2:30. Maybe grab a late lunch or go sourcing. I don't know. I think that'd be pretty cool. I got the day open for that, so hit me up when we're up there. And then there's the one in Austin, one in New York City, and then there's also like watch parties happening. So this is interesting. So for example, there's there's an Ohio watch party in Akron, Ohio. There's a Denver watch party. There's a Colorado Springs watch party. There's one in Chicago, Fort Lauderdale, Rockland, Las Vegas. There's just a bunch of them.
Here's what I want. I want footage from the watch parties. I want to see if this is like 3 people in a room watching Zoom around a computer together, or if this is like a whole bunch of people at like a bar with like a giant TV and everybody's like hanging out, like, yeah, here comes the next speaker. Like,
no,
I can't imagine what these watch parties are.
Not what's happening.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like, is it the 3 people around a computer, or is it like the big event, like with a big screen TV and sound system and like someone like hosting it and games being put? Like, what is a watch party? I want to see. If you're attending a watch party and you're a listener to Pierce Podcast, get some footage and then describe in the comments below what it was like at a watch party.
I just think it's great to network with other resellers.
It is great to network with other resellers. I'll give you that. So yeah. I'm not trying to down it. This is one of those things where it could be really awesome for eBay, or it could be a total flop, and people could be like, what were they thinking doing it like this? And we won't know until it happens.
I'm just glad they did the hybrid. I'm glad they had the eBay Open Studio. I think it'll be good. So another thing, this is what I think will be interesting. eBay has not come through on instant pay. So will people ask those questions? I will ask that question, because I'm one of those guys that likes going to these and asking the tough questions. And so I'm hoping it comes maybe by the end of Q4, but it's been a lot of time, right? There's just some things I'm just like, can we just resolve this? So anyway, I'll end with my rant there. Okay, this is good news. Let's talk about some good news.
Let's do it.
So we all know we all know shipping rates go up during the holidays. But Pirate Ship is coming through. Now, maybe eBay is coming through, but Pirate Ship officially announced, they said most priority mail rates will not get holiday increases on Pirate Ship.
Nice.
So they said by using Pirate Ship, the holiday increase will not apply to all priority mail flat rate envelopes and boxes, most priority mail regional rate boxes up to zone 6, and most priority mail cubic and weight-based shipments up to zone 6 and 10 pounds.
I'm gonna write some copy for them for an advertisement. I don't know, maybe they're really good with like themed advertisements and like messages that go out like pirate theme. They need to do something like, ahoy, we've dropped anchor in this storm of inflation and we're not going anywhere. Prices are going to stay.
There is no perfect storm.
Prices will stay steady as we hold anchor here. Something like that. Like that would be pretty clever.
What if like Johnny Depp Like he pulls it, like he gets sponsored by Pirate Ship and he does an ad. That would get eyes on.
That'd be good. And then also his was the Dior Sauvage, the cologne. He's like spraying that, and he's like shipping price. Because he's the one that he's the guy that is their main spokesperson.
That is true. So anyway, I encourage you guys, if you have not checked out Pirate Ship, definitely check out Pirate Ship. Again, we're not sponsored them. We don't get anything from them. Love to be sponsored by Pirate Ship. But if you're shipping stuff out, I think it'll only take you like. I'm sorry,
I don't mean to interrupt, but we should. I almost feel like every time you say we're not sponsored by them, we should just say that about like everybody. Like, so Amazon is really cool. We're not sponsored by Amazon. No. FedEx is. We're not sponsored by FedEx.
All right. That's fair. Okay.
We're just talking about Pirate Ship because it's a good feature for you to use.
It is.
We'd love to be sponsored by. We're not sponsored by Amazon, but we'd love to be sponsored by Amazon.
On a practical level, though, I think you'll be able to figure out real quick if you're saving money on Pirate Ship by just the first few items that you're shipping after October 2nd. And then after October 2nd, you'll go, okay, maybe I need to go to Pirate Ship for this, or maybe I just stay on eBay. So definitely check it out, because sometimes you think you're getting a better deal on Pirate Ship, but it's just the same thing as eBay. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one.
Yep.
And then, that's pretty much it. We're gonna call it there.
We're gonna skip the FedEx one.
Well, okay. So I don't know if this is fake news, right? Because the other day I saw a news story like UPS biggest strike of the century planned for next year. So why are we talking about this now? Right. So this other story is FedEx Delivery Network, and a few news stations reported on this. Daily Mail, CNN. FedEx Delivery Network is on the brink of collapse because rising costs have pushed contractors to the brink of bankruptcy, owner delivery truck fleet warns. So basically, a lot of the FedEx ground stuff that gets shipped, FedEx doesn't do the final delivery. Usually they're a small business contractor and they do the final leg. And so what they're saying is, because of gas prices, because of wage increases, like, we need the costs of FedEx to go up so we can keep running our business. FedEx is trying to keep it down. And so a lot of these companies are saying, we don't know if we can continue doing this because of inflation.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's got to be hard. And then also too, part of the thing is rising costs. And then FedEx kind of has a reputation. Like we like the fact that you have FedEx and UPS as an option, right? The two are kind of similar enough. You know what I mean? It's like, it's like Lyft and Uber, right? Like they're basically the same thing. There may be minor differences here and there, but I think a lot of people have experienced a lot of negativity with FedEx, and maybe it's the opposite. Maybe your experiences have been perfect with FedEx and bad with UPS. But anecdotally, most people I talk to, it's like when there's issues with shipping, a lot of times it's FedEx. So one of the beautiful things about having an option with two private companies is you could say, well, I'm going to UPS then, and so. Not only is rising costs going to be an issue for a company like FedEx, but that's compounded with the fact that they've got to be losing some of the market share. And so if they're not having money coming in and prices are going up, that is a recipe for disaster. So, but what I don't want to see is I don't want to see one of the two options collapse, and then you're just stuck with now UPS. Of course, you got USPS, but that's like a different animal, right? So
USPS has been pretty rough lately.
It's been pretty rough, yeah. So what I want to see is two thriving alternatives, right? Like if you have two thriving alternatives, then that's going to drive prices down and it's going to drive service quality up. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to see FedEx collapse. I want to see FedEx pull out of this somehow, and I want to see them and UPS continue to develop competition and create a system where we, as the people shipping stuff, are going to get the cheapest prices and be able to choose between which service provider is going to provide the best. And they're fighting for that. Hey, who can be cheaper, who can be fastest, and who can do it without any problems. And that's going to be ideal for us. So I think the long-term impact, if FedEx does take a huge hit and goes under, I think then that creates more problems for us as resellers than it could possibly solve of saying, well, FedEx had issues, so good riddance.
Yeah, I have concerns. I do think overall, like, we're going to be okay. I think there's going to be another competitor.
Look, we're all going to make it, man. If you're a pure hustler, you're going to make it. We're going to make it.
Pure Hustle Podcast, Pure Hustle Packing.
Yeah.
We'll have our own delivery.
We're all going to make it.
So anyways, I just think this Q4 will definitely be very telling. So, all right, that's our reseller topics. Let's talk about some BOLO.
BOLO.
What's your BOLO?
Yeah. All right. My BOLO is it's an interesting one. So I've talked a lot about like miniatures. In fact, some of the toys you picked up were miniatures, right? You picked up some Mage Knight when I was talking to you about those a little bit. So I've talked a lot about like gaming miniatures. And I've also talked about models. I've sold some model pieces here and there, various types. And I sourced something recently and I was pretty excited about. And I totally forgot, like, as I first see this, I know the brand. I see the brand. I'm like, I can't remember, is this a game or is this a model? And so I had to do some research. But the brand Forces of Valor, and it's mostly models. I think some people might play some games with it. So the scale is like 132 size pieces, and they're typically like World War II, World War I, various wars. And they are models that are like, typically when you think of models for like war stuff, you're thinking like planes and tanks, which they do have. And the crazy thing is, if you look up Forces of Valor on eBay on the sold listings, you're going to see some of their tanks going for like $900.
Yeah, like I'm seeing some are crazy.
Yeah, like, thousands.
Like there's a German King Tiger tank for $21.99.
Yep. And that's sold. Yeah. So some of these tanks can be very expensive, but one of the cool things too is they have like in packages, like people with like lots of little things. So like people will set up dioramas of war, like they'll recreate war scenes on tables, and some people do it as games. And I think the quality and the types of pieces for gaming miniatures are a little different than like the model ones. So model ones are going to already be put together. A lot of times the war gamers, they paint and assemble their own pieces. These ones are already assembled. So it's relatively small items that are easy to ship, but the potential profit is there. Now, the hard thing with things like this is if you're going to a collector, if you're going to somebody's garage sale or you're trying to buy it on Craigslist and somebody spent a ton of money on like World War II models and they've kept them in their boxes, they're probably know they're worth money and they're not going to sell them for dirt cheap. But you can keep your eye on them because sometimes these things end up at thrift stores. Sometimes I've sold, and I remembered back because I had sold some Forces of Valor tanks when I first started reselling from a thrift store. And I picked these pieces up at a thrift store and they were open boxes and some of the pieces were in different boxes and I had to like remove, like put everything in the right stuff. And so that they were sold as, you know, open, used, and I had to take pictures of all the pieces that were with them. And I had to do some research to figure out which went which. And I was selling some of these tanks with the men and stuff that went with them for like $70, $80. And I picked them up for like $2 at the thrift store. And so you can...
I always thought like Forces of Valor, is it Forces of Valor? Mm-hmm. I thought they were like Walmart brand toys.
No. And well, and see, that's the thing is there may be some like offshoot plastic, but if you're getting metal miniatures, and you can typically tell if they're high quality, it's like detail. Like detail is the key when it comes to miniatures, unless you're looking at like vintage. Some vintage stuff, there's like very low detail because they just didn't have the technology. But if even older stuff, if it's big, like a tank or a car or a plane, especially if you're looking at people, you're looking for like high quality detail. And there's a huge difference between like a Walmart plastic toy of like army men stuff versus like a model quality or like a gaming quality miniature. And the only thing I could suggest is just hold one or two and look at a couple of them. Like if there's a game store around you, like a comic book store, go and check out some of their like miniatures, like their Warhammer. I've talked about that game. Now Forces of Valor, which isn't necessarily a game, but it's, if you look at these pieces, you can tell like, oh, there's definitely a difference in quality in this, even though it's still just a piece of plastic. Like Warhammer's crazy. Like they're literally selling pieces of plastic that should be like a couple of dollars toy at Walmart, and they're selling for like $80 for the box.
Yeah, I saw
they go for insane amounts. Crazy. So, but there is a quality difference as far as like the way they're sculpted, the way they're printed, the way they're you know, sometimes they do force injection or they do metal molding, and the quality is there. And if you're a collector, you want all the same. That's the other thing too, is if you start collecting and you're doing Forces of Valor style 132 size, then you can't all of a sudden switch to a different brand and get different models. Like, oh, I'm going to get the Germans in like a different brand because they're going to be slightly off size wise. These people have way bigger hands and heads than these people, and that looks weird, right? So people, once they get into that collecting, they'll do whatever it takes. Oh, that whole line is out of print. Now what do I have to do? Well, I've got to go onto eBay because I want to finish this diorama I've started. So
yeah, that kind of happened with one of the Briar horses I sold. I used the item specifics and I put that it was I just borrowed it, and the size it said it was 12x6, and the one that sold was 3x4. And so I had to message him like, hey, just give you a heads up, this is 3x4 and not 12x6. and they're like, oh no, that's the one I've been looking for so long. And you know, they dropped $30 and they paid like $40 global shipping.
Nice.
Right. So the same thing with Forces of Valor. Like if people are looking for it, they're gonna want to buy it.
Yeah. Once you're into something like that, once you're into a hobby like that, you either get out of it completely or you stay in it for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like those are the two options on that. And so people will go all in. So yeah, thrift stores, potentially these things end up at, and the reason they end up there is because people are cleaning out their kids' rooms or unfortunately things like a death. And so that's why estate sales are another good place to look at for things like this, because it's like, I don't know, my dad collected all these weird toys that he set up in the basement and they're all these army men. Like, I don't care. Give me a price, right? And then you're able to pick up big collections. But if you don't know to be looking for these, you might just totally pass and be like, there's a box of toys. But if you see a couple boxes of like Forces of Valor stuff or a couple of the pieces out, you can just ask like, hey, do you have more of this? Because chances are if somebody's collecting it, oh yeah, there's a whole box of those somewhere. Let me go look. And then there might be you might be able to buy out a big purchase because usually somebody doesn't have just one of this model tank. If they're spending hundreds of dollars on a model tank, they are collecting the set.
Yeah, agreed. Now, my BOLO, it's funny, we're like becoming a toy podcast, but
which is very unusual. We don't do lots of toys.
No, but I'm telling you, I've been shifting, right? I've been shifting more collectibles, and this $50 purchase of all these toys, I knew that some of them were money, and it goes back to when I was in Wisconsin this past summer. A family friend, she took me to their thrift store, and like the thrift stores to go to, and in it, Jessica does a great job of finding stuff that I can't see. And there were some Transformers. And she's like, Orlando, do you think these are good? And in my mind, I'm like, nah, but they were like 75 cents or $1. And sure enough, I picked them up and it was like an Optimus Prime from like the 2000s, like the Dark Moon edition or something like that. And it was another like a Rhino one. And one sold for 30 something, another one sold for 40, and the third one sold for like 40. Right. So I paid like $3 and I made like $100 net profit. The only part I didn't like was I had to watch videos on how to like build them and, like go from the vehicle.
So you're watching like kid videos?
No, these are full grown
collectors.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of like, I'm learning more. And so I go into, when I bought this, I started going through it and there are some Transformers from like the late 90s. Usually I think of vintage toys, I think of 80s. But 90s is vintage. Early 2000s is becoming vintage. And sure enough, like one of the collections was like a Beast Wars collection. And one of the pieces went for $60. I had no idea. This is why I just dropped a dollar amount, not knowing what I was getting. But I knew I could at least make my money back on some of the Star Wars stuff. And sure enough, very profitable. So the big thing is, whenever there's those bags at the thrift store or maybe at a garage sale, people like just lot up all the Transformers into a bag and they're like, just take it all. Like, do a quick lookup. It doesn't hurt you because, again, if you can get it for super cheap, like you got to balance your time, right? If you're not too keen with Transformers, spending 45 minutes trying to put one into a robot and turn it back into whatever it's supposed to be, maybe it's not worth your time. But if you're able to, quickly do that and you can like list like 5 of them, right? And you only paid $5 for those 5 and those 5 can turn into $150 after an hour of building them, taking pictures and listing them. It's $100 something an hour. It's definitely worth your time. So that is my BOLO, not so vintage Transformers.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, something that has been great for us and we haven't mentioned it. Well, no, we did mention this is American Bubble Boy.
American Bubble Boy.
And I gotta tell you, this is some quality stuff right here.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, our listeners
sound for some ASMR.
Yeah, maybe we start an ASMR podcast.
I can't even pop it. There you go.
Right now, we're gonna go ahead and pop some bubbles. We are popping bubbles.
So, anyways, American Bubble Boy. Best product out there for bubble wrap. Best shipping, free 2-day shipping. You can get next day shipping. You can get local pickup. Definitely the best deal on bubble wrap out there. Quality stuff. This last round, I bought a bunch of the bigger bubbles, and it was a great deal. So if you haven't checked them out, go to our link below for American Bubble Boy. Helps us out. Definitely will help you out because you'll get that great deal. And it's quick shipping. The next day, I got this next day shipping. I ordered this bubble wrap on Friday during the time of the deal. I got it Sunday afternoon.
Nice.
That was fast.
It's fast.
So check them out. All right. What are you looking forward to?
I am absolutely 100% not looking forward to moving my inventory from where I'm at to where I'm at. You know what I mean? Where it was to where I'm at. But I am looking forward to it all being. So there's like a covered patio that's been enclosed where we're just moved to, and we're gonna kind of turn that into our eBay room. And so the fact that I can open up the door from my kitchen, walk out and see my inventory, take some pictures, pack some stuff, and then ship it instead of having to like get in my car, drive down a hill, around a corner, up some crazy off-roading to get to a shed, to like do some weird 20-point turn to turn around at the shed and drive out and back to my house. Like, it's enough inconvenient that I didn't ship, and I didn't list as much. Well, I shipped every time something sold. So, but I didn't, every time I was like, some people would ask questions and it'd be like, what size is this? And I'd be like, oh, it's a $25 sale. I'm not even going to answer. Like, it's not worth it, you know? So, but now when I can just open up a door and go out there. So I think even though I'm putting my store on vacation mode for probably a couple of weeks, I think once I kind of kick back in, I think I'm going to be more efficient than I was before. So I am looking forward to that.
Okay.
What about you?
So a few things. I'm looking forward to the Whatnot auction. I had a lot of fun last time. It was such a good time. Like seeing everybody in the comments. I wish you could like do like Zoom during the Whatnot auction. That would be cool. Like people can chime in. People like, I don't know. I think it'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But so Whatnot, if you're listening, let us be the ones that pilot that. Not sponsored. All right. So,
but we'd love to be sponsored.
Yes. I need to organize my workflow. Right now, my workflow is crazy due to all the inventory I've had. Where I used to take pictures of stuff has moved to another room. If I had to do Amazon FBA right now, I probably have a breakdown because I don't have a space for it right now. And yeah, my living spaces are still my living spaces except for the Whatnot auction part. But my dining rooms, half of it's still my dining room. My living room is my living room. My bedroom is my bedroom. My kids' rooms are their kids' rooms. Laundry room is a laundry room. Bathrooms are bathrooms. Like everything is good, but I need to reorganize my workflow. And then last of all, I go back and forth. I keep telling myself I'm not going to do any retail arbitrage for Q4, but I feel it calling me. And so I'm going to do a little bit of scouting. I have not been into an off-price store, I think, since February. So I'm going to step back in and see maybe if I'm going to go that route in Q4. Think about it. Q4 is less than a month away.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
So anyways, hey, thank you all of you that tuned in. We talked about so much. Hopefully you're able to gain some things that will definitely help you in a resale journey. And with that being said, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Late. Peace.